Okay.
Well. We now have a series because the Philadelphia 76ers handled business last night at the Wells Fargo Center, and what a game it was, of course. Leading the charge, the man himself staring at me from behind the scenes, Joel Embiid, 50 from the big man in 40 minutes of action, 13 of 19 from the field, 5 of 7 from downtown, 19 of 21 from the free throw line, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 fouls, only 3 turnovers. He had a block, no steals. That is the box score from the great Joel Embiid. 125, 114. Hello, everybody. Picks and roll. Sean Barnard with you here. A lot to discuss. Sean, good morning, good afternoon. How we doing today, sir?
Yeah, great afternoon, Sean Brace. That impressive Joel Embiid performance last night, one that we will forever remember. That does go in the hierarchy of best games of his career when you put it in the context, the situation, just the level of he's at physically is pretty ridiculous to put that on full display. They needed every point of it, that he was the guy that led the charge for this Sixers team. I know we talked yesterday hoping that the other guys would step up. We did get a little bit of campaign action, better game from Kelly Oubre. Maxey was all right. But it was Joel Embiid that was the center force driving this team. And you're just seeing his ability and his capability to just will this team to win. And I don't expect it to stop from here.
Yeah, what the hell is this Bell's palsy stuff? Like, the Joel Embiid is doing this on, we talked about it yesterday again, 65%. He's not
Yeah,
even close to 70, at least heading into last night. Looked much better last night from
he did.
that standpoint as far as the leg is concerned. And then this Bell's palsy stuff comes out of nowhere, which is a virus. I've heard of it before. I don't remember like the last time I've heard of it. And now our center, Kevin Kincaid, rolls out. This is definitely on the Mount Rushmore of injuries slash ridiculousness that has happened to Sixers players over the years. Peanut allergy, fractured face, bike accident. Like this is absurd, and it's not anything to joke about. It's the real deal. The only thing I'm catching right now, Sean, is this is something that doesn't go away overnight.
Yeah, and likely throughout the course of the playoffs it will not. And I know I've rolled out this take before, but I've in reality learned far more about injuries and stuff just watching and covering the Sixers than I have in my 3 years as a physical therapy student. So it's wild to see all this go down here. But the from a personal standpoint, my grandma did have Bell's palsy, and it's just kind of sucks. Like you just can't move half your face, and like from a human being level, it's tough to just like look yourself in the mirror and see that. And to see Joel like going out of his way to keep it a private matter for as long as he did, it was clear that there was something up. Like everyone could kind of see it, and it's unfortunate, but he's just going to battle through it. And it is unfortunate that there isn't really a solution. There isn't something. It's just kind of your body has to fight it off. Sometimes there's not really even a timeline for how long that is. And like there's even cases where it doesn't go away, which I obviously wouldn't wish on anyone and hope that is not the case. In reality, you just kind of got to soldier through, keep going. But it's just another thing added to the laundry list of reasons of issues that have bothered Joel Embiid. And it just sucks. I feel for the guy on a human being level that he's just had to deal with as much as he has.
Yeah. And you could tell that it's bothering him. And I would imagine there's a little something there as far as mentally is
Yeah.
concerned, right? And taking the aggression out on the Knicks. I know that it's not so much out of character for Joel, but he was definitely, a little extra last night, which is great. Hey, look, whatever you got to do. But I think mentally he's probably dealing with it. And it's probably frustrating because the hell, man, like, he's letting the fro go. Maybe that's part of it. Like, yo, I'm rough right now, and I can only imagine from, as you said, the human standpoint, when you look at yourself in the mirror and you're just like half your face isn't moving. And oh,
Yeah.
by the way, now it's not like you and I where we can just hide for the weekend. No, you got to go play a game on national TV under the bright lights
Yeah.
where you're probably second guessing what you look like. But putting that to the side, dude was a monster last night, 50 points, and it's needed. And I just don't want to turn the page on this performance at all. But I will say this much. These performances are great, but you have to win this series or else it's going to be just like Maxey with the flu game, right? That
Yeah.
Maxey flu game is going to go down in history, but man, Sixers came up short. Got to pull this series out. I do want to say this, and I'll give you the floor. Sean Barnard told me that if they do lose the first two in New York, he said that he still had confidence, all the confidence in the world, that the Sixers would come home and win 2 straight, even the series. I thought that was a foregone conclusion. One step closer, my friend.
Yeah, and obviously they got to show up, take care of business on Sunday, and make sure that this continues in this process here, that they're still on their pathway to winning the series. And for now, they are. That it was mission accomplished last night, and just don't let it get lost that there's a real world where the Sixers are up 3-0 in this series right now. Like, we're not that far away from it. Obviously, that does not matter in the context that they're still trailing a game in the series, and they got to scrap their way out of it. But this series has been far closer, and the Sixers have been the better team throughout all 3 games in this matchup. So I don't want to get that lost in the conversation. So I do see a different version of Joel Embiid. I think that matters in the context of the Sixers team. That when he had that quote following that game 2 loss, saying that I don't care, we're the better team, we're going to win. That was not Joel Embiid whining. That was not him throwing teammates on the bus, being upset. That was a focused, determined, and confident MVP saying, I'm going to do whatever it takes to lead this team to a victory in the series. And I think we're going to see that come to fruition here. That I do believe we're in the process of that path. I just believe him. And like, I do feel like we're at the start of a special Joel Embiid run, but like you said, it doesn't matter until they get the results in the series, but can only take care of that one game at a time.
76ers currently right now plus 205 to win this series.
Yeah, they were plus, I believe, 350 yesterday, somewhere in that range. I again, and I talked about it yesterday as well. The series spread at plus 1.5 at plus 145 yesterday was all over. I think that was a phenomenal value there. And frankly, I don't see a world where they don't win 2 games in the series, and we're one step closer to that. So this is a series. This is something that we expected from the beginning, that this is going to be a bloodbath. This is going to be a hard fought, deep series. And that's exactly what we're getting.
Yesterday, nice win, of course, by you on a number of fronts. Oubre and the Sixers money line. Oubre, what was the number? 15?
15 on the alternate points. It was plus 500 on the parlay there.
And he hit 15 on the dot. Hell of a call by you in 38 minutes. He was 6 of 8 and a much needed performance by Kelly Oubre. Definitely in the first half. I think Joel Embiid handled business for the most part in that second half. Maxey finishes 25, and I believe the number was 25 and a half.
Yeah, it was a weird Maxey game that he had that burst in the third quarter, which was very important to building that separation and really taking a stranglehold on that game. So I'm not going to be overly critical of him. I thought he was fine. It certainly was not the superstar performance that we've seen from him to start this series. It wasn't one of these games where he's gone toe to toe with Jalen Brunson and came out the better man. This was his worst game in the series, but we're saying that in the context of him having 25 points and 7 assists and overall playing very well. So I do think it just goes to show how much the bar has grown and been raised for Tyrese Maxey specifically. And in reality, he was still just fine as a number 2 option, and he didn't need to take over down the stretch because Joel Embiid did have it in the tank last night.
Yeah. Hey, look, great performance all the way around, and one that was needed by some other players. Now let's talk about campaign here and shine some light on him, because, man, I was one of the Tom Boger, diehard Knicks fan, covers the MLS insider, good friends, and talking trash behind the scenes. And he said, I'm not worried. You got campaign in there, and that's the only reason why you won today. And I go, yeah, campaign delivered. He finished with 11. He was 3 of 4 from downtown. It's not to sit here and say that like campaign saved the game. What it is to the point that they finally got production from somebody else.
Yeah.
Somebody like, this is going back to game against Miami with Batum, right? That's what was needed. And this is playoff basketball where the greats are going to produce, but it's about the other guys stepping up and making a name for themselves. And most of the time, that's the difference. And you look at what Miami was able to do on the road against the Boston Celtics in that game 2 matchup. You look at what the Dallas Mavericks were able to do in game 2, getting production from other guys besides Luka and Kyrie. Game 1 with the Clippers. You could just go down the list. The superstars are going to do what they do. It's just a matter of the role players, the other guys that you're not counting on. If they produce, it makes life easier. And are we asking too much here to get production on a nightly basis from a Batum, from a campaign, from a Tobias Harris, for crying out loud? That is asking for too much. But, Joel Embiid's going to go for 35 to 45 every night. Maxey's going to give you 25. Somebody else or a number of other players need to step up. Last night, they answered the call.
Absolutely. And you hit on a ton of guys there. For campaign starters, like campaign's been a guy that's hungry and he's not afraid of the moment. And that's exactly what we saw last night. Like one of the common phrases that has been thrown around or conversation points around this team is just how like pissed off he's been that he's not playing. And like that's a good trait as an athlete that you want guys like that who are hungry to get on the floor. And he is a guy that's proven it. Like he's scoring 29 points in a playoff game in a Phoenix Suns jersey before. That happened in this version of the NBA not too long ago. And you see him hungry. And it was him taking Buddy Hield's minutes last night. We saw that the Anthony Melton stuff seemed to be a bit of a smokescreen there, that he did not actually step foot on the floor. Who knows if that'll change moving forward. But the bottom line was campaign answered the call. And the final straw on Buddy Hield was absolutely he got an open three-pointer, bricked it, and then 2 possessions later smoked a layup. You just can't play him when that kind of stuff's happening, that he's there to be an offensive weapon. And thankfully, Nick Nurse did answer that call. But campaign had an awesome quote after the game where he just said, energy costs nothing. And that's a phenomenal outlook for a guy who is the ultimate vibes guy, is a guy that is a bench piece, a guy that comes in to change the tempo of the game. When you watch him going through warmups or even just on the sideline, he's the number one dude dancing, hyping up guys, just like giving energy in the way that you want. And I think that's a super cool outlook to give. And again, he's just not afraid. Like he stepped up and took a 3 on the first opportunity that he had, nailed it, hit another one, had the floater. He's got a little juice off the dribble, which is important for this offense. They don't have a ton of guys that can do that. When you think about the Nico Batums of the world who aren't beating anybody off the dribble, and even Kyle Lowry at this point in his career doesn't quite have that juice in his tank at this point. So campaign, it's nice to have that change of a pace. I do think this is something that is sustainable, that can continue. I'm not saying he's going to be perfect from downtown on an every night basis. I think he missed one last night. But I do think that he will be a key piece of this rotation moving forward, and at least for this series.
Yeah, 3 or 4 from downtown. Again, Oubre is a guy that we'll throw out there. You know, you're getting production from him, and you need to count on that because
Yeah.
he was a guy that delivered throughout the course of the season. But again, what he's doing on the defensive side of the ball, pretty damn significant there. Yeah, let's take a look at the Knicks box score and get into that a little bit here. Brunson went for 39. What was your Again, we were live. Great time in Knicks roast beef. Shout out to the Gambler gang. Weren't able to really dial it into too much detail. I'm sure you will fire it up back again over the weekend here to get a peek at it before Game 4 on Sunday. But
I already gave it a rewatch when I got home, Sean Brace.
Did you? Oh, you watched it when you got home. You are a sicko. Brunson went for 39. What was the take? It's just you can't keep a good man down for too long. Is it they changed up some defensive sets on him? Was there adjustments from the Knicks side? What was your take on that?
Yeah, definitely part of it is he's a good player, and then he's going to get his that is a point, and he's played below the bar that is his standard. From the Sixers side of things, they played a lot more matchup zone last night than they had in the first 2 games. I don't love that as a look, and particularly what that meaning is Brunson can kind of pick his matchup there. He can pick his battles where they swing the ball over the context of the zone, and you can get away from Kelly Oubre, and all of a sudden you're attacking Tyrese Maxey or Kyle Lowry. And we saw more of that last night, which I think definitely played into him getting it going. I don't think Maxey was as good on him last night as he was in the past 2 games. I give Maxey a ton of credit for the way he's competed. He had a couple block shots in that first game against Brunson, and just in general has been far better defensively than has been the case in past years. But I didn't think it was a great defensive performance from Maxey last night. I think that played a role, and I think Brunson hunted that a little bit. But the bottom line is, like, you got to give something for this Knicks team. And I think the calculus in Nick Nurse's head has changed a little bit, that we're willing to live with the Jalen Brunson tough 2-pointers, which are essentially his go-to shot, or getting to the mid-range and going to those faders. Maybe it is better to give a little bit more of that than these open looks from beyond the arc, which has been a big part of the Sixers kryptonite in past games. So I'm curious to see what kind of adjustment is there. Again, you're not going to keep the dude down forever, that he is a good, very good basketball player. But overall, the job was done, and they still got the win, so I can't complain too much.
As far as rebounding is concerned, I haven't looked at the numbers here. What are we looking at as far as box score rebounding in that game? How did I got it in front of me right here. Total rebounds, 32 for the New York Knicks and 36 for the Sixers. You know, because I bring that up because it's interesting when you do have a guy like everything's connected. And I always use that. And it's not just a cliche, but it's like, all right, if you're going to defend one way, maybe that allows, you know, the Knicks to slide in and get better position on the rebounds, that sort of deal. So if it's something like you're going to live and let Jalen Brunson pull up, you know, and get those floaters off, and you're able to, like, okay, he's out of the way. So now you got 5 on 4 underneath, something along those lines. Maybe that's better. But Sixers obviously needed to improve in that category after game 1. They did so in game 2. and of course winning the battle there in game 3. Your big takeaway is that now put to the side? Will the Sixers not be dominated again? Number one efficient team as far as offensive rebounding is concerned through 82 games, the New York Knicks. Are we past that? Will the Sixers hold it down as far as rebounding is concerned moving forward?
Still absolutely something that needs to be the top of the focus from the Sixers end. That this Knicks team is one that will bury you and be focused on doing that on a nightly basis. Josh Hart is a guy that kind of gets the back-breaking rebounds, and him specifically last night, he ended with 6 rebounds. 3 of them were on the offensive end. That was still a little better than it has been in past games. It's still not great that you still want that number a little lower. That 3 offensive rebounds to a 6'4" guard isn't awesome. But then again, like that's what he does. Like, you know, that he's one of the premier rebounders in the sport, regardless of height there. Another point to note is Mitchell Robinson getting hurt last night. He's been a guy who's like a huge part of this rebounding battle, and particularly on the offensive end that he's punished the Sixers team. And by the way, that ankle injury completely independent of the Joel Embiid situation, despite what Knicks fans want to rub the narrative on Twitter that it's direct exact opposite ankles, that it's a left ankle injury. And it was the right ankle that Joel Embiid did pull there. So I hear you. Nice try, but it was not the issue there. He came in battling an ankle injury. He re-injured it. It's basketball. Things happen. But that is a big hit to that Knicks team, that he is a guy that they depend on for those type of opportunities, those second chance points, and has been the best defender on Joel Embiid so far this series. So I think that's something to keep an eye on moving forward. That definitely hurts the rebounding battle. But the bottom line is that is an area where the Sixers are still vulnerable. It is an area where the Knicks are still good. So it has to continue to be that type of focused effort that they did give last night.
Joel Embiid, man, 3 games into this series plus the Miami game, he has 37 points per game, 8.7 rebounds per game, 5.3, and 60%, 65%. This is just in Bell's palsy. What the hell is going on? Just incredible. Hey, shout out to Nick checking in. He said last night, the Paul Reed jersey is the good luck charm. Bring that out the drawer every game going forward, Sean Barnard.
We'll have to. Out the mud, baby. And we still have not seen the Paul Reed and Joel Embiid on the floor together, as would be one of my fixes to this rebounding battle, but they're finding ways without it. So credit to the Sixers team.
Excellent. All right. And a special thanks to our guy, Sheffield Shuffler, rolling through. Peter last night, hanging out with us as well. Definitely going to be mixing it up with him over the next few weeks here on The Gambler. Exciting stuff. And everything is going to be rolling into the hoops season. He's not a big hoops guy, but, really good dude to get out and involved with the Gambler gang. And, of course, bringing it for baseball and football, which we did have an NFL draft. We'll get into a little bit later. Sean's going to stick with me here for the full 40. Talking all things Sixers, though, Knicks, unbelievable win last night. And Sean, I'm not going to lie to you. I was still set up. I believed I was rah-rah. We were there, and, there's no way I was going to bet against the 76ers, but I came away impressed last night. Should I be?
Yeah, absolutely. And like as I spoke, we can talk all the basketball stuff. How good Joel Embiid's been, Tyrese Maxey stepping up, the other guys showing a little bit of signs of life. But I do think the mentality stuff is a bigger takeaway here. That they picked themselves off the mat in a way that a lot of teams would not be able to, and a lot of past Sixers teams have not been capable of. So I do think that's worth noting. I do think that starts with Joel Embiid, this determination, this fight that he's showing. He's the head of the snake, and the team's following him in that lead. So I do think that is a huge takeaway. I do expect it to continue moving forward, and I do think we're getting a different version of Joel Embiid this particular playoffs. And when you're as talented as he is, as focused he is, and as determined as he is, you can purely put a team on his back, and he's showing that in stretches. So I do think this Sixers team is different, and that's directly because of Joel Embiid.
Tell you what, I'm buying what you're selling, man. I think the Sixers even up this series. I can't believe I'm saying that because I don't like to be blowing in the wind with my takes, but you got 3 days off.
Yeah.
Today, tomorrow, you play Sunday. So, 2 days. Sunday at 1:00. They're 5-point favorites. So the number tells me that, odds makers, that was crazy. We got a lot of people hitting us up on the timeline yesterday going, have you guys ever seen anything like this where there really isn't too much of a change as far as players are concerned, yet such a swing? That's a 10-point swing. It was 5, 6.5 for the Knicks in the Garden, and then 5.5, 6.5 for the Sixers last night. It just, the home court definitely is number one because of what's taken place so far in the playoffs. But number two, it just comes down to the health of Joel Embiid, and people definitely have, some connections on the inside. He looked great last night, Sean.
Yeah.
So I'm with you, man. I think they tie it up on Sunday 2-2. 5.5-point favorites on DraftKings Sportsbook on Sunday. No way the Knicks roll.
Yeah,
No
I
way the
don't think.
Knicks, right?
Yeah, no way. The 5.5 is a lot there. It's also, I think, when you get in the context of the number, like one of these spot plays in the way that we say that, like, I think everyone with a sensible outlook could have looked at the first two games and said, like, this is going to be a battle, that these are close games, and this is an opportunity where the Sixers are going to punch back a little bit. So I think that was a bit of a reaction. It's absolutely a huge swing there. But to your point about Joel, I do think last night was the best physically that we've seen him look in maybe even weeks at this point. Like some of those spin moves and the way that he just exploded towards the basket, I have not seen from him in like seriously weeks. So
First basket.
yeah, the first basket, that
First
first spin.
basket.
And
Yeah.
and the other point to note, like there were still a couple moments where he was hobbled or,
Oh,
had a
yeah.
little bit of a limp in him. It wasn't 100% by any means, but he held up over the length of the game better than he
Yeah.
did for sure in game 2 and really in a couple games now. Well, obviously game 1 because he went down holding it and all that stuff. So the fact that it was from start to finish with this like pretty good best case version of Joel that we're going to be getting at this point, I do think is a huge takeaway and another reason for optimism moving forward.
Yeah, it's a good call because you didn't really see the limp big time in that second half. Now, he was definitely in his groove from downtown.
Yeah.
So that could have made life a little easier on him. It should have made life a little easier on him. But at the same time, when you got it, keep it going, baby. And Joel Embiid, 5 of 7 from downtown. Phenomenal evening by the big man. Just incredible. Let's talk about the refs for a second because they've unfortunately been a part of the narrative so far. What was your takeaway from last night? Did the Sixers get calls because of home court and what took place in game 2?
I don't think so. I would not frame it that way that it was there. I mean, the refs are going to be under a spotlight from here on out. The biggest critique that Knicks are going to fight about is Joel should have been thrown out for that Mitchell Robinson play. I hear you. It's on the gray area. Like you can argue that is a little bit more of a flagrant one. If they had thrown Joel Embiid out in that game, it's absolutely absurdity that this is the
Oh,
playoffs, and you got to be a
yeah.
little bit real about this. That like you just can't do that to a guy. Now Joel's got to keep school better for sure.
You
Should not
think
have
he
done
should have been thrown out because of that push?
that. I don't. But
Would
you
he have been
can.
thrown out of a regular season game?
I still don't think so. You can let her.
No, I don't think
Yeah,
so either.
you can letter of the law pull up the definition and argue that he could be for sure. Like you can put a justifiable argument there. I just don't think that's the case. And we also got to be in the real world that we live in that there is a little bit of a different whistle for stars. And Joel Embiid has earned that. Same thing if Jalen Brunson had done that you do not throw him out for that particular thing. And history does have to play a part here. That people that are arguing if that's Draymond Green were up in arms right now, you're right. But there's a reason for that. That Draymond Green has given plenty of material. Now, Joel Embiid doesn't have a absolutely clean past by any means, but it's not like he's a guy who's known to be dirty. And I by the way, just absolutely love the move of just what are you going to do to Dante DiVincenzo? That's a Joel Embiid classic. And when you're 7'2", 300 pounds, and the biggest dude on the court, that plays every single time. So that shouldn't be the last one he breaks that out.
Want to give a huge shout out right now watching us on Instagram. The great Book It with Trent watching. Shout out Trent. Big fans of his ass. Always love when he loses. Make sure you're picking the Knicks, Trent, on Sunday. Katie checking in from BetMGM. Always great to see Katie. Big time Sixers fan. And of course, Chef still with us as well. Rolling live as always on all of our social media platforms at Fox PHL Gamblers. Sean Brace, Sean Barnard. Exciting stuff. Sixers game 4 on Sunday, 1 p.m. What are you doing for the game?
There's a chance I'm in the building, still figuring
Nice.
that out completely. So a little bit up in the air in there. That's the best case scenario for me, but we'll see.
All right. I think I'm going crick crawling with my daughter in the morning and my wife, and then we're celebrating. My birthday's the following day, so we're going to get out. And I said, let's go and get active in the morning and then make sure we're at some bar/restaurant for 1 p.m. Watch the first half or whatever from there. All right. Anything else from that game as far as looking at the numbers right now? They do have all the props up on DK here. Is there a bounce back performance? Maybe Dante, because he was ugly in that game 3 last night. Is it Maxey, a little bit more from him? Joel Embiid, are we looking at his number at 33.5 being too low? Where are you at immediately right now as I ask you for game 4 as far as players are concerned?
I think my mindset has changed a little bit that like Joel has got this in the tank more so than I gave him credit. So I think that 33.5 number is fair. I do think that he does eclipse that and he's going to score as much as necessary for this team to win. And I do think he's capable of that in a way that I kind of doubted before last night. So I do think that means something. I'm very interested to see the defensive adjustment, how much of a focus shifts back to Jalen Brunson versus taking away the 3-pointers in a way that was more of a focus for this Sixers team last night. So I'm curious to see what that looks like from Nick Nurse's standpoint. I'm still going to pound the table of this Josh Hart stuff is not real, that I refuse to believe he can shoot this throughout the length of the playoffs.
14 and a half. 14 and a half. We on his under?
I think I probably will take the under there. That I just don't believe it. I just don't believe that this guy's going to keep doing. Not to his credit, like Josh Hart, he is a dude that has that dog mentality. That this isn't Ben Simmons, this isn't Matisse Thybulle. That yes, he's a bad shooter, but he's not unafraid of the moment, and he is a guy that is taking it personal, which I do respect from him. But I just don't believe that he's capable of keeping this up and sustaining it for the length of a playoff series. So I do like Embiid's points. I'm curious. The Kelly Oubre number I'm going to keep an eye on again because I do think that that's something that they're going to keep being a focus. And the point being there that he's done so much for this team defensively that you almost kind of owe it to him to go get it, go take a couple of shots here, man. Like you've played enough, hard enough on the other end. Let's get you going a little bit on offense. So as much as I hear it for saving him from an energy standpoint, I think he's a guy who feeds off getting himself going and scoring. So I think they owe it to him to keep him going, and I think he's capable of putting the rock in the basket a couple times again.
Josh Hart, Sean Menard, 7 straight overs on his player point prop.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. He's obviously shooting the lights out, and let me pull up a Josh Hart stat here that absolutely blew my mind. Like, I'm still a back of the baseball card guy, that he's a 31% three-point shooter and has been throughout this season, and even throughout his career, he's slightly better. I believe the number's at around 34%, which is slightly below average in the NBA context here, but he's just not the shooter that he has looked like, and I do believe him coming back to earth. And as far as I'm scrolling through, shout out Dan Ollinger of the Rights to Ricky Sanchez here for this Josh Hart stat. But Josh Hart did not have a single game during the regular season where he hit 4 threes. He has hit 4 threes in every single game of the Sixers next series. Unbelievable. Like, I just don't believe that that's real.
It is insane when you really think about it. He's unconscious. He's playing well. He's being asked to hit those open shots because of the focus on Brunson and others. But at the same time, eventually you got to come back. The law of averages kick in. So I would ride with you in game 4 there. Man, he's so whiny. He's a guy that never bothered me. All these Knicks players never bother me, but this series gets to you. And that's the beautiful thing about a 7-game series. You learn to develop this hatred towards these players because it's night in, night out. Now it's a little bit more spaced out these days, but I love a 7-game series. And I can't even imagine what it's like to be a player on a professional level in a 7-game series, especially one that goes 7, whether it's hockey or NBA basketball. But it's great. And hopefully we do get 7 because it's 6. Sixers and 6, but I'll live with a 7 as well because that means the Sixers handle business, and that's right back in no, it's actually game 7 be in New York, correct?
Ooh. Yeah, it would be in New York, so that'd be at the Garden for that one.
Ooh, that's not good. But regardless, it is what it is. Okay, let's keep it moving as far as these games are concerned. Anything else from the Sixers before we move on?
Yeah, no, that's just about it for me. And I guess from the Knicks side of things, like, I'm with you that there's absolutely a hatred for these guys that I didn't expect to be the case. And you can call me a loser for saying this as the Sixers are still trailing the series, but I've honestly been less impressed from a basketball perspective from each of these guys. Josh Hart excluded in that, but Brunson and DiVincenzo, they're good players. I do think they're a little bit overinflated in some of the conversations that they're put.
It's a matter, but it's a totality thing for me when you talk about these guys because of what they bring on the defensive side, what they bring as far as that nastiness. It's not fake, and these guys did win championships, right? Like at the college level, these dudes are championship ball players. I know it's not the NBA; it's a different ball game, but still, to reach that height, it's got to develop a sense of bravado in you that, like, if you're not a champion, you don't know what it's like. Very few people can get to that mountaintop, and they did it twice, I believe. All of those guys. Josh Hart, I never had an issue with Josh Hart. I never looked at him like, but dude, he's got this whiny face on. He's always like,
yeah,
I can't stomach him.
Yeah, and
stomach him.
Jalen Brunson, by the way, like, I credit for how good he is, the level he's a playoff riser, all these things. I don't think you can win a championship with him as your 1A. I simply just don't. And that's more of like a fundamental basketball construct of him being an undersized guard. But
who's his B? Who's his Robin, though?
Sure.
That's my pushback on that is get him somebody that's a real deal Robin. Get him a Maxey. What are we saying then?
Then I'm saying teams are scoring 130 a night on them, if I'm being honest. But I do hear your point.
Get him an SGA. Get him
Sure. Well,
a
that's a top 5
Jimmy
player.
Butler. Get him. He doesn't
Yeah.
have anybody. That's what really impresses me, right? Like he's got nobody to work with.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. And like the larger conversation here is the Knicks have done a very nice job building an infrastructure to sustain winning. That Brunson's kind of a piece of this, that he is like the guy that has created this environment. And the whole concept is to get that star player that you can plug in and then make them a championship contender. But I do think that the ceiling is not a championship team. Like, even if they are to win this round, which is absolutely still a possibility, I don't think this team stands a chance against the Celtics.
Well, we'll see where the Celtics are because they got themselves a game coming up here tomorrow, game 3 in Miami, where they're 9-point road favorites. We'll talk a little bit about that. Yeah, just as far as putting the bow on the next conversation there, they are scrappy. Sean, one other thing too, yesterday, there were some pretty good dunks by that squad, man. There's some high flyers. They got some athleticism. They're scrappy. That's what they're missing. I know that's what they got to say. Now, if they lose in this series, being up 2-0, who knows what they're saying at that point in time in the offseason. But anything less than a championship, they're saying exactly what I just said. You got to get somebody else in there that can help Brunson as far as scoring is concerned. And I don't know who's available in the offseason. That's for the Knicks to worry about. That's their problem, but we'll see if the Sixers handle business here. All right. With that being said, let's keep it moving. Let's talk about what took place last night. Man, Denver Nuggets are a machine. And they were losing in the first half. I watched a little bit on the phone, got home, and they were up by like 11, and it was all she wrote. And it's a shame. I mean this sincerely. I would normally be a guy that's like welcomes LeBron losing or getting swept, but he's only got a few more years left, if that. So it kind of sucks from that standpoint. But the Nuggets are an absolute machine. Last night, handling business 112-105. Oh, by the way, 1.5 dog. Did not understand it, did not agree with it, said take the Nuggets, why not? And they handle business 112-105. That score it makes it seem closer than what it really was. Impressive win by the Nuggets last night. Your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. And to me, game 2 was the story of the series there. The Lakers played awesome in that game. LeBron was terrific. Everything went right, and they still lost. That it was Jamal Murray just ripping their heart out at the final buzzer there. And that was one of those where the series was over right then to me. If they did not go 1-1 at that point, I think things went down or going downhill from there. And that's exactly what we're seeing. That you're right, that score is closer than the game was. Got home and was able to catch the final end of the third quarter and full fourth quarter there. And that, like, they were trying to scrap, but it just wasn't happening. That this Nuggets team is just too good for this Lakers team, and it is unfortunate that things are going downhill. D'Angelo Russell played very poorly, could not hit anything. I think he was 0 for 6 from 3, and he's been a guy who's been very reliable for them throughout this entire year. He's had a very good year overall. I've seen the Darvin Ham criticisms, but to be perfectly honest, I don't think there's a single coach that could outcoach this Nuggets team with this Lakers roster. So I think Ham might end up being the fall guy here, but the bottom line is the Nuggets are just that good, and the Lakers aren't quite that.
No, and the Nuggets, as you just said, are that good. And I'll be shocked. I said it, no, actually, I take that back. I think I definitely said it about the Boston Celtics. I'd be shocked if they didn't get to the NBA Finals. But to tell you the truth, as much as I do believe the Nuggets will be there, I still believe that OKC can give them a run for their money. I still think Minnesota's being slept on. We got a lot of basketball to be played in the West. Just to let you know, DraftKings Sportsbook, Celtics plus 130 to win it all. Nuggets plus 210. And then such a jump. So if you don't think it's going to be either one of those teams, there's money to be made. And I'll get into where I think it is in just a second. But to continue down this board, 12-1 for OKC, 1,600 for Dallas, plus 1,700 for Minnesota, 18 for the Knicks, 22 for the Bucks, 22 for the Clippers, 30-1 for the 76ers. Good grief.
Wow.
How about that? Yeah, 30-1 for the Sixers right now. Might take a nibble on that. Anyways, where I think there's money to be made, conference finals, reach the NBA finals. I hate betting to win it all because when your team gets to the NBA finals or the Super Bowl and they fall short, a lot like the Eagles 2 years ago, whatever it was, you get nothing. So here we are. Yeah, of course you can hedge. I get that. But to get to the NBA Finals, that's to represent the West or the East to win that conference. That's where my focus is right now. East side of things, Boston minus 195, Knicks plus 550, Bucks plus 850, Sixers 13-1, and on the West, Nuggets minus 135, OKC plus 450, T-Wolves 7-1, Mavericks 7-1, Clippers 12-1, and we'll stop there. Anything catch your attention from those numbers, Sean?
Yeah, I do think that there is value on the board for the Sixers. That I think regardless of your kind of feelings on this series, and it's Sixers versus Knicks, whoever comes out of it, I think either one of these teams pretty much beats up on either the Bucks or the Pacers, whoever wins that series for the next. So then we're talking Sixers or Knicks versus Celtics there. I have taken a nibble already on the conference finalists. Celtics versus Sixers, that's down to plus 475. I got that at plus 625 there. I do think that there's value there. That's a pretty good number for the type of matchup that essentially you're just wagering on who wins this series. And I don't think Boston's ultimately going to have an issue cruising through there. And also, you mentioned kind of the entire like winning it all. I do think it's worth taking a nibble on a lot of these teams. That it's surprising to me the Nuggets are a larger number in the plus 200 compared to the Celtics there. Obviously, they have a tougher path, and the East is the easier route when you look at it in its entirety. So I get the logic there, but it's tough not to say that that is not good value in the plus 200 there. And I think like the Timberwolves are a team you mentioned that I think are far more legitimate than they're getting credit. I've been blown away and really impressed with both of them. Anthony Edwards looks ready right now. So I think that's a team. And the Dallas Mavericks I'll also throw out there as a team that deserves some buzz that I think has the potential of taking down this Denver team and making a conference run or championship run themselves.
So for everybody else out there, just to go over the board real quick, so the Thunder and Pelicans winner will go up against the Clippers and Mavs, and then the T-Wolves and Suns will go up the Nuggets, Lakers. And then you got the Knicks, Sixers will take on the winner of the Bucks and Pacers, correct?
Yep, correct.
And on the flip side, you got Celtics and Heat, and they'll get the Cavs and Magic. So the Celtics will be in the Eastern Conference Finals as long as they can win a game or two in Miami.
Magic,
Knicks,
by the way, won by 50 last night or something like that.
What the hell? That is crazy. What was the big takeaway in that?
Yeah, 121-83 was the final score there. So I did not catch a second of that game as we were locked in on the Sixers. I was just looking at the box score that the Cavs shot 23% from beyond the three-point arc, 39% from the field. I think so. A lot. The Magic also out-rebounded them 51-32. So basically everything that could have went wrong seems to have gone wrong for Cleveland there. They're still up 2-1 in the series. That was a must-win spot for this Magic team. So not very surprised that they got the win, but I am shocked to see that type of margin there. So I don't think that series is entirely over. That I think the Magic have a good amount of fight in them, that they're a hungry young team. And frankly, I have issues with both the teams' roster construction. So I could see that series getting extended a little bit, but interesting to note for sure.
Yeah. All right. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about tonight's games here. Once again, Sean Barnard sitting in with me here, full hour coming your way. Let's go ahead and talk about the Bucks and Pacers. Game being played in Indiana, -6, 223 is your total here. One thing that caught my attention going into this series, and of course, Giannis being hurt is the number one talking point, but the Pacers are terrible on the glass. One of the worst teams rebounding as far as the season is concerned. Haven't been that bad here. Of course, it's evened up. 6-point favorites at home, 223. Odds makers are telling me Indiana's the play here, Sean. Your thoughts?
I lean that way as well. Probably my favorite
Wow.
way to bet it would be the over. I think the 223. I mean, we know how the Pacers play, that they want to make it a track meet. They want to get up and down, and they've done a pretty good job of enforcing their tempo so far on this Milwaukee team. There's real deal beef between these two teams, which I love. We saw Halliburton taking a little shot post game, saying how it wasn't as loud as he was expected with the fans, that he hears far louder crowds back in Indiana and stuff like that. There's been a couple back and forth. Pat Bev, of course, getting in the mix and a little bit of on-court scrap and some pushing and shoving stuff. I expect more of that as this goes on. I do think the Pacers are a team that, in annoying fashion, do talk their talk when they're winning. And I think I see more of that going down tonight. That I do think the Pacers take control of this series. This Bucks team, like, they're just limited without Giannis. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And even a guy like Dame Lillard, he's been better in the playoffs, but this wasn't like Jimmy Butler playing possum through the regular season. There's some real deal issues in seeing him aging in a way that I think is quicker than the Bucks were expecting to this point, I would say. So I don't think he can put the team on his back the way that he did in Portland. And I don't think, frankly, that this Bucks supporting cast has enough juice without Giannis to step up and run with this Pacers team. So I do think that Indiana does take control of the series. The -6 feels a little bit heavy to me, that I do think it's going to be a game, but I do like the over 223 quite a bit.
All right. This is where we're gonna butt heads because I already got a vibe from you, I believe. 8-10 tonight, Clippers and Mavericks. Mavs -4.5, 212.5. This number seems a little low, and it was even lower. I think we just bumped up a tick, if I'm not mistaken, on DraftKings. I just feel like, man, the odds makers are trying to tell you that Clippers have a shot to go in there and win this game outright. Plus 154 on the money line. Um, it's been a really weird series with the addition of Kawhi. I think Ty Lue played him a little bit too much in game 2.
Yeah.
Game 1, all the excuses. I don't know. So I just feel like let's reset here. Game in Dallas. I still feel like the Clippers can go in there and win this game today. Where are you at?
Yeah, I think I agree with you that I think this is a Clippers spot that they can win. This has been another series where it being 1-1 doesn't match up where my eyes take. That I think the Clippers have been the better team for the better part of both games. I think that like there's just one of these factors of Luka Doncic is cold blooded, that he just took over down the stretch and won that game in game 2. Was the best player on the floor when we're talking going against the context of Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, that it was Luka Doncic being the guy down the stretch. And it's an interesting clash of styles from a basketball perspective that this Mavericks team, they're very isocentric, that they want to play Luka Doncic, dribble out the shot clock, and then have 3-point shooters around him. And Kyrie Irving kind of gets in the same style of play, that he does his thing. He has his moments where he takes over. I think Kyrie, once again, has been far better than he's gotten credit for this year. He's been all about basketball, and when he's doing that, he's at his best. I believe in this Mavericks team. It would not surprise me if the Clippers take tonight. It's a spot where I'm staying away from a game perspective, because Luka is absolutely capable of going nuclear and winning the game outright in the same way that we've seen from some of these stars, and frankly from him in game 2. So I think I lean Clippers on the game tonight, but I do think the Mavericks win the series.
Interesting. Okay. And then that will be the Thunder Pelicans. I would hope OKC advances there, and they'll get either the winner of the Clippers or the Mavericks. And I think as far as boards are concerned, matching up, we know the weakness with OKC. How are they against the Clippers? How are they against the Mavericks?
They don't have a Jonas Valanciunas, which I think like the biggest area when the Thunder struggle is when it's a big-bodied center. That they roll out a nice slew of like athletic guys, that Derek Lively, PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford, all have their like individual strengths and weaknesses and are all very good rebounders overall. I don't think it's quite the stylistic player that Chet struggles with, that he's much more like Jokic is going to be the guy that's going to be an issue for Chet when we see that type of matchup. That it is just the physically imposing, able to push you around. And that's why Valanciunas has some success in that series. None of those guys are as like physically imposing as those styles of players. So I don't think it's going to be as much of an issue for OKC. But I do think like we're underselling just like how efficient Luka has been in a half court setting. And it's one of those like it rips your heart out when it's going well, because he is soaking up every second of the shot clock. He's dribbling it 20 plus times in a possession. You're holding him playing good defense, and all of a sudden there's nothing you can do about it. So that's going to be a fun series to watch. I do expect we get it, but I don't think like rebounding should be at the top of OKC's worry meter when we're speaking about that matchup.
All right. And in the final game this evening, T-Wolves and Suns. You got Phoenix 5-point favorites, 207.5. This is a must-win for Phoenix. I still don't think that they do. Maybe they get the job done and win, but I'll take the points with Minnesota. Your thoughts?
I like the Suns -5 tonight. I do think the Timberwolves win the series, but I do think Phoenix is like, as you said, it's a must-win spot. They still got Kevin Durant. They still got Devin Booker. They're heading back to Phoenix. I do think this is a matchup where they get the job done and put forth somewhat of a convincing victory tonight. They need to. It's going to be full-out disaster city in Phoenix if they do not. And particularly speaking in the long term, as you know, made the all-in chips in the middle move already. So will be quite catastrophic if they don't. I think they ultimately do and do cover the number.
I'll take that action, show. We might have to fire up the cut app because I just don't see it with the Suns team right now. And more importantly, more impressively about the Minnesota Timberwolves, right?
Yeah,
that's where my mind dropping 120 on them, blowing them out after they were trailing. They were down by 1.5, and that was all she wrote. You're getting it from all over. Naz Reid, of course, 6 Man of the Year, production from Ant. Karl Anthony Towns is back. Rudy Gobert looks like a monster in these games. I'll take the points. I'll take the points with the T-Wolves. Good luck. Shake your hand on that one. We'll fire up the cut app there. I do believe that the T-Wolves are our only hope, because if it's the Nuggets and OKC in the Western Conference Finals, we already know how that's going down. Nuggets are going to win. The T-Wolves are our only hope to knock off the Nuggets. Fair?
Yeah, I think that is fair, but I've heard a ton of talk about that. Like that they match up the best of anyone in the West. And I've still just absolutely seen this Nuggets team just blow through this Timberwolves team. They're like they're
Well, they
the
blow
final.
through everybody.
True. But the game that was essentially for the 1 seed in the Western Conference, when it was between these two teams in the final week of the season, it was one of those matches where the Timberwolves basically had them where they want them, and then the Nuggets were just too good. That like fourth quarter stretch where they just got rolling in a way that really only they can as a team, that put quite a bit of concern on my mind when speaking about this is the solution to taking down Denver. So I just don't know if I see it in a 7-game setting, and that speaks way more about Denver than anything about Minnesota.
Your favorite play tonight?
The over in Pacers Bucks, over 223.
I'll take the points with the T-Wolves.
I don't hate it. I can see it happening. I don't think they're going to go down with a fight, and Anthony Edwards is ready. I just do lean towards Kevin Durant is still Kevin Durant, man. He's been terrific. Devin Booker has been quieter than I think he will be for the length of the series, and Bradley Beal has still been fine. But I do think that he will be better. He will continue. He's had his ups and downs and has throughout the season. It feels like a must-win spot, and I think they're hungry enough to go out there and take it.
What is the next move for OKC? Because I was reading some things that Kevin Durant did, like Chet's shoes voice. So people are trying to pitch that he might end up back in OKC. Is that real or not?
There's a lot of growing speculation about that. I don't. It's definitely not something we can say is real yet. I mean, we know how Kevin Durant is at this point.
Yeah.
Like he's pretty quick to jump shit and find a new spot there. So keep the door open for sure. I think speaking from OKC's mindset, I would go out there and try and get like a Miles Turner would be my tactic here. That I think this team has enough stars that I do think Chet, Shea, Jalen Williams, these guys are ready to continue progressing, but you do got to find a guy to balance Chet's weaknesses. And a guy like Miles Turner, who is a good rebounder, is a good shot blocker, a big body, and still a good 3-point shooter who can hang out on the perimeter. So I think that would be the guy that I've circled in my mind and would be a missing piece for them, but will be interesting to see. They've got a plethora of assets to work with, so plenty of directions they can go.
Sean Barnard, fantastic job. Great job last night. Your favorite part of last night was what?
Joel Embiid, man. Like that was just one of those I'll remember from Joel. That the way that he just went out there and took it. You playing the song in there, it was a great night. Everything was awesome.
Yeah, we had some good funny one-liners. I would say that Kristen Cavallari probably was the best part of my night. That was good. Hey, man, awesome stuff. Can't thank you enough here on today's Daily Ticket. Of course, Picks and Roll. You'll be able to find it at foxphlgambler.com. Be sure to follow Sean at Sean_Barnard1. That's the number 1. Everybody, good luck on all your plays. Are you with Mark Henry tomorrow?
Not tomorrow. I can't swing it. Okay. So just about every other Saturday, yes, but off for this week.
Well, we'll be following along this weekend. Of course, Mark Henry Jr. is going to have a lot to discuss for the NFL draft. Everybody enjoy the games. We'll talk to you.